Don't bring her, she'll embarrass us. My son said it quietly right there in his own kitchen, thinking I couldn't hear him from the hallway. But I heard every word. My name is Dorothy. I am 63 years old, and for the past 31 years I have cleaned other people's houses for a living. I scrubbed their bathrooms, folded their laundry, organized their pantries, and drove home in a car that sometimes needed a push to start. I raised my son Marcus in a 2-bedroom apartment on Clover Street. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and I truly believed that was enough. Marcus is 34 now. He is a project manager at a firm downtown, wears pressed shirts, and married a woman named Brittany 2 years ago. Brittany comes from what she calls old money, which mostly means her father has a boat and her mother has opinions about table settings. From the moment Marcus brought her home to meet me, she smiled with her mouth and looked at me with something else entirely. She noticed my hands first. The way they looked. Rough, dry, the kind of hands that tell the truth about a person's life before they ever open their mouth. I saw her notice. I said nothing. I want you to understand something before I continue. I am not a bitter woman. I am not someone who spends her evenings cataloging slights and rehearsing arguments. I believe in hard work. I believe in keeping your head down. And for a very long time, I believed that if I loved my son well enough, nothing else would matter. I was wrong about that last part. The baby shower was Brittany's idea, of course. A Sunday afternoon at her parents' estate out in West Haven. The kind of house with a circular driveway and a separate building just for the cars. They were expecting their first child, a boy, and Brittany had planned the event for 3 months. Caterers. A string quartet for the first hour. Little sandwiches with the crusts removed. I know because Marcus told me, and I could hear in his voice that he was proud of it, proud of her, proud of the life they were building together. I was proud of him too. I bought a gift. A hand-knitted blanket I had worked on for 6 weeks. Cream-colored, soft, with his initials stitched into the corner. MJR Marcus James Reeves. I had also tucked inside the gift bag something else. A card. And inside the card, a slip of paper with an account number and a balance. I had been saving since Marcus was 4 years old. I need to explain that, because I know what you were thinking. You were thinking, how does a house cleaner save significant money? The answer is that I never spent what I earned. I drove the same car for 19 years. I never took a vacation. I brought my lunch to every job in a paper bag. When my clients upgraded their furniture and offered me the old pieces, I thanked them and sold them quietly. When a client left me an unexpected Christmas bonus, it went directly into the account. When my mother passed and left me a small inheritance, not large, not dramatic, just the accumulated savings of a woman who also knew how to be careful, every dollar went in. I never touched it, not once. Not for Marcus's school clothes, not for the leaky roof, not for the years when work was slow and the pantry was thin. I told myself that money had one purpose. It was for him. For a moment when he would truly need it. By the time of the baby shower, the account held $412,000. I was not going to tell him at the shower. I was not going to make a scene or a speech. I was simply going to hand him the card, let him open it privately, and watch his face when he understood. That was all I wanted. One quiet moment of him knowing. I arrived at Brittany's parents' house at 1 o'clock, the same time stated on the invitation. I wore my good dress, navy blue, the one I saved for church and occasions. I carried the gift bag carefully. I had pressed the tissue paper that morning. A woman at the door directed me toward the back garden, where perhaps 40 people were already assembled around white tables with flower arrangements, I recognized as expensive. I found a seat near the edge and set my gift down with the others. Brittany was holding court near the fountain, laughing at something her college friend had said, her hand resting on her round stomach. She looked happy. I was glad for that at least. Marcus found me after about 20 minutes. He hugged me quickly, the way busy people hug, body present, mind already somewhere else. "Mom, you made it," he said, as though my attendance had been in question. I smiled and told him he looked well. He did. He looked healthy and happy and like a man who had built a life he was comfortable in. I felt the familiar swell of something that lives just underneath pride, that particular feeling mothers carry, bittersweet and wordless. The gift opening began around 2 o'clock. Brittany settled into a large chair decorated with ribbons while her mother handed her packages one by one. There was laughter, exclamations, the performance of gratitude that these events require. I watched and waited. When my gift bag was handed forward, Brittany pulled out the blanket first. She held it up, examined it. Then she looked at the woman beside her mother, Patricia, and something passed between them. A glance, brief and complete. "Oh," Brittany said. "Handmade." She set it on the side table, not on the display pile with the other gifts. On a side table, where things go that will be quietly donated later. I kept my expression still. I have had a lifetime of practice at that. Then she reached into the bag and found the card. She opened it. Read the slip of paper. And I watched her face change. Not with surprise. Not with gratitude. With something I can only describe as offense. She passed the paper to her mother without a word. Patricia looked at it, and then she looked at me across the garden with an expression that I want to be careful describing accurately. It was not anger, it was amusement, the specific amusement of someone who has just been handed something they consider beneath them. Brittany set the card on the side table with the blanket. Moved on to the next gift. A stroller from her college roommate. Very modern, German engineered. Enormous enthusiasm. I sat with my hands folded in my lap and breathed slowly. After the formal portion ended, I went to find Marcus. He was by the drink table, talking with Brittany's father, a tall man named Gerald who called everyone friend, in a way that meant the opposite. I waited until there was a pause in the conversation. I touched Marcus's arm. "Did you see the card I left?" I asked. Quietly. "Just between us." He glanced toward the gift table. "Mom, you didn't have to. Did you read it?" He hadn't. I could see that. He had been busy hosting, performing, being the son-in-law Gerald approved of. He excused himself and walked to the side table. Picked up the card. Read it. I watched him. I watched his face go through several things quickly. Confusion first, then something I couldn't quite name. He walked back to me. "Mom," he said, and his voice was low. "What is this?" "It's an account I've been building for you and your family." He looked at the number again. He opened his mouth and closed it. Then Brittany appeared at his shoulder, the way she always did. She had a gift for materializing exactly when I wanted to speak to my son alone. "Everything okay?" she asked, touching his arm. Marcus showed her the paper. She looked at it the way she had the first time, with that same expression that was not surprise but something harder. "She wants to give us money," Marcus said. There was a strange note in his voice. Uncertain. Brittany looked at me. "That's very kind." Her tone was the tone of someone declining a strange street pamphlet politely. "But honestly, Dorothy, we're fine. We don't need." She gestured vaguely. At me. At my dress. At the inference of everything I was. "I know you don't need it," I said. "We have the nursery set up, we have the college fund started. Gerald helped us with that actually, so—" "I understand," I said. "It's a lovely thought," she said. "It really is." And she took the card from Marcus's hand, folded it once, and dropped it into the small mesh trash receptacle beside the gift table. I heard it land. Marcus said nothing. He was looking at me, and I believe he understood something in that moment, because his expression changed, but he still said nothing. He looked at his wife, then back at me, and he said nothing. I picked up my purse. I said I needed to get going. Early morning tomorrow. I hugged Marcus, who held on a moment longer than he had when I arrived. I nodded to Brittany and Gerald and Patricia. I walked back through the house with the circular driveway and got into my car. I sat in the parking area for a few minutes before I started the engine. It was not the money. I want to be very clear about that. It was never about the money. It was the moment. The way she loaded that paper, the number on it representing 31 years of my life, every sacrifice, every brown bag lunch, every Christmas bonus, every year of driving a car that wasn't worth insuring, and dismissed it with the confidence of someone for whom numbers that size are unremarkable, that she didn't even look ashamed, that Marcus watched and chose silence. Before I went to sleep that night, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, and I made a decision. The next morning, I called a woman named Helen. Helen is a financial advisor I had been working with for 11 years. I told her I wanted to restructure everything. I asked her to walk me through what that would look like. I also called someone else, a woman I had cleaned for years ago, who had since become something of a friend. Her name was Constance, and she was an estate attorney. I asked if she had time to meet that week. She said yes. When I met with Constance, I brought all the documents, the account statements, the secondary investment account I had opened 12 years ago on Helen's recommendation, the one I had never told Marcus about because at the time I was afraid of disappointing him if the investments lost value, and I simply never got around to updating him when they didn't. That account, built from index funds and quiet patience, had grown to an amount I still found startling when I saw it printed on paper. Together, both accounts totaled $980,000. Not $1 million, but very close. Constance set down her reading glasses and looked at me carefully. "Dorothy," she said, "does your son know about any of this?" "No," I said. "Does anyone, you and Helen?" She nodded slowly. What do you want to do? I told her. I want to say here that what I decided was not revenge. I've thought about that word and I don't think it applies. Revenge implies that you are responding to injury with injury, that the point is to cause pain. That was not my intention. My intention was clarity. I simply wanted the situation to be clear. I removed Marcus from my will entirely. In his place, I designated 3 recipients. The first was a women's shelter 2 towns over, where I'd quietly volunteered on Tuesday evenings for the past 8 years. The second was a scholarship fund at the community college, where I had taken night classes in my 40s, accounting and business, which is partly how I had learned to manage the investments. The third was a young woman named Rosa, the daughter of a colleague, who was the first in her family to attend university and needed the kind of help that doesn't come with conditions. I also sent Marcus a letter, not by email, by mail, in an envelope with my return address on it. The letter said this: "At the shower on Sunday, I tried to give you something I'd spent a lifetime building for you. Your wife threw it away. You watched." I have thought carefully about what that moment told me, and I have decided that the most honest thing I can do is to let that decision stand. You both made clear that what I have to offer is not something you want. I am honoring that. The accounts no longer have your name on them. I am well and I am at peace, and I love you. That last part has not changed and will not. But love and estate planning are different categories. Mom. He called me the next morning. He had opened the letter at the kitchen table while Brittany was still asleep, he told me later, and he sat there for almost an hour before he picked up the phone. I let it ring. I let it ring again. On the third call, I answered. He was not angry. I think that is important to say. He was not angry. He was something worse, which was bewildered, and the bewilderment had cracked something open in him. He said, "Mom, I didn't know she was going to do that." I told him I believed him. He said, "I should have said something." I told him yes, he should have. He was quiet for a long time after that. "How much was in those accounts?" he finally asked. I told him. He didn't say anything for what felt like a very long time. "Mom," he said, "you drove that car for 19 years. "I know," I said. "You brought lunch in a paper bag. Every day." Another silence. I could hear him breathing. "I didn't know," he said. And then, quieter, "I didn't ask. That is the part that stayed with me. Not the money. Not Brittany's expression. Not the card landing in the trash. It was that my son had never asked. Had never wondered how I was doing financially, emotionally, in any sustained way. Had assumed I was simply getting by, and had been comfortable with that assumption. Had built his own comfortable life on top of it without ever looking down to check the foundation. I told him I loved him. I told him I wanted him to be a good father to his son. I told him that I hoped, when that little boy was old enough, Marcus would tell him about his grandmother who cleaned houses and saved quietly, and believed that money was love made patient. We talked for almost 2 hours that morning. It was the longest conversation we had had in years. This part I want to say carefully, I did not change the will back. I have had people ask me, a friend, my sister in Phoenix, even Constance raised her eyebrows, whether I intended to eventually restore Marcus's inheritance. I have thought about it seriously, and my answer for now is no, not because I don't love him, but because I think the most loving thing I have done in a long time is let him sit with the truth of that Sunday afternoon and understand it fully. There is a particular blindness that comes from being loved without being made accountable. I gave Marcus that blindness for 34 years. I drove an old car and carried a paper bag lunch and never asked anything of him except that he be happy. And he was happy, in the way that people are happy when they've never had to consider the cost of the happiness they were handed. The will stays as it is. The shelter will get a new wing. Rosa will finish her degree. The scholarship will carry someone's name who needed to be carried. And Marcus, my son, my heart, the reason I saved it all. Marcus will have to build his own foundation, brick by brick. The same way I built mine. That is not a punishment. That is the most important gift I have ever given him, even if he doesn't know it yet. I still clean houses. I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays now, just 2 clients because I want to, not because I have to. I like the work. I like the way a room looks when you have brought order back to it. I like driving home in the afternoon knowing that what I did today was real and honest and complete. My new car starts on the first try. Every time. The baby was born 6 weeks after the shower. A healthy boy, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Marcus sent me a photo the same evening. The boy has my father's forehead and Marcus's chin, and he is the most beautiful thing I have seen in a long time. I sent him a blanket, cream-colored soft, his initials in the corner. MJR Marcus called to say it was the first thing they put on him. I held the phone and looked out my kitchen window for a moment before I answered. The light was doing something nice with the oak tree in the yard. That's what grandmothers do, I told him. And before you close out of this video, I want to ask you something. Has someone in your life ever looked at what you built and decided it wasn't worth much? Not because of the number, but because of what they imagined about the person who builds it. If that has happened to you, I hope you remember this. The value was never theirs to assign. It was always yours. It was always yours. If this story moved you, I hope you'll subscribe to Quartz Revenge and share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's another story coming next week that I think you'll want to see. Don't go anywhere.